Asset liability management is a management tool for managing liquidity risk and interest rate risk. Now let us discuss about the definition for liquidity risk and interest rate risk. Liquidity risk means, from the layman's point of view, inability to meet out short-term obligations. It is called liquidity risk. From the point of view of risk management students, liquidity risk arises when short-term liabilities are deployed in long-term assets, or when there is a mismatch between the maturity period of assets and the maturity period of liabilities. So in these situations, a liquidity risk may arise. For example, let us take 100 crores liability. It is for a period of 1 year. Now it is deployed in an asset for a period of 3 years. Now here there is a mismatch in the maturity period of liability and maturity period of the advances. Maturity period of the liability is 1 year, maturity period of the asset is 3 years. Therefore, there is a mismatch in the maturity periods of asset and liability, and as a result, the liquidity risk arises. Now, what are all the effects of liquidity risk? It has got an impact on banks' earnings. Reputational risk arises, because when liquidity risk arises, a bank may not be able to meet out the demands of the customers. It has got a contagion effect. Liquidity crisis can lead to runs on institutions. Now, what is the reason for ALM gaining momentum? Globalization of financial markets, deregulation of interest rates, mismatches in the maturity profile of assets and liabilities. Banks borrow short-term liabilities and lend it on long-term basis for profitability. So these are the reasons basing on which the ALM is gaining momentum nowadays. The liquidity risk leads to liquidation, a solvency problem in the initial stage, which may lead to liquidation at a later stage. Similarly, interest rate risk arises that affects the profitability of the financial institution. There are three objectives for the ALM. One is to increase net interest income, to increase net interest margin, and third one is to improve economic equity ratio. Now, what is meant by net interest income? Net interest income is the difference between interest income and interest expenses. It can also be called as spread. Now, from the net interest income, you can calculate net interest margin. The formula for it, net interest income divided by average earning assets into 100. Average earning assets means earning assets at the beginning of the financial year and at the end of the financial year, you calculate the average. Third one is economic equity ratio. That is the ratio of shareholders' funds to total assets. Now, this economic equity ratio, it can also be called as equity ratio. Here, a company with an equity ratio of value that is 0.50 or above is considered as a conservative company, because they access more funding from shareholders' equity than they do from debt. And if the economic equity ratio is 0.50 or below, it is considered as a leveraged company. The higher the value, the less leveraged the company is. Now there are two approaches for managing the liquidity risk. One is stock approach, the other one is the flow approach. In the stock approach, there are certain ratios based on which you can calculate the position of the liquidity with the banking system. In the case of the flow approach, you have to calculate the net funding requirements, classifying all the assets and liabilities into different time buckets. And basing on that, you can calculate what is the net funding required, and accordingly the net funding required can be managed. Now these are all the different ratios. The ratio of volatile liabilities minus temporary assets divided by earning assets minus temporary assets. The industry average is 40%. All the details are given therein. There are different ratios, and the industry average also is given for each ratio. And if the ratio is below that industry average, then you can conclude that there is a problem of liquidity. Then in the case of the flow approach, a structural liquidity statement is to be prepared. And for the interest rate risk, interest rate sensitivity statement is to be prepared. Now, as far as liquidity risk is concerned, in the flow approach, we have to classify all the assets and liabilities into 10 time buckets based on their residual maturity as per their maturity profile. These are the different time buckets. Day 1, 2 to 7 days, 8 to 14, like that. There are 10 time buckets. Previously, the first 3 time buckets were considered under one head, 1 to 14 days. Now it is classified into 3 heads, day 1, 2 to 7 and 8 to 14. Now Reserve Bank of India has given guidelines. The day 1, 2 to 7, 7 to 14 days and 15 to 28 days. These 4 time buckets are considered very important while assessing the liquidity risk and how to manage the same. Here, maturing liabilities, we call it as cash outflow. That is, when a deposit matures, you have to pay the money to the customer. So we are calling it as cash outflow. That is maturing liability. Maturing assets means the cash inflow. Suppose if an installment due on a particular day, the party has to remit the money to the bank. So we consider it as cash inflow. So all maturing liabilities are cash outflow, and all maturing assets are considered as cash inflow. Now, you have to classify all the assets and liabilities into 10 different time buckets, and you have to calculate the net funding requirement by finding out the difference between cash outflow and cash inflow. Now you see, this is the structural statement. Now these are 4 time buckets are considered as very important. Now here, the maturing liabilities, that is total cash outflow, for day 1 200 crores, 2 to 7 300 crores, 8 to 14 500 crores and 15 to 28 days 400 crores. Similarly, you have to find out the total cash inflow, that is maturing assets, 180 days day 1, 2 to 7 250, 8 to 14 400, and the last one is 300. Now you can find out the gap. Sometimes the gap may be positive or the gap may be negative. If the gap is positive, then there is no problem for the bank. No, the liability will come to the bank. Here you see, cash outflow is 200, cash inflow is 180. Therefore, there is a negative gap. That is the difference between maturing liabilities and maturing assets. Now, gap for the day 1 time bucket is 20 crore. Similarly, for day 2 to 7, it is 50 crore. And for 8 to 14, it is 100 crore. And 15 to 28 days, it is 100 crore. Now you see the cumulative gap, 20, 20 plus 50, 70, 70 plus 100, 170, and plus 100, 270. Now you have to calculate gap as a percentage to total cash outflow. This is the gap. Total cash outflow is 200. Now you calculate the gap as a percentage to total cash outflow. Now gap is 200, cash outflow is 200, gap is 220, cash outflow is 200. Therefore, the gap as a percentage to total cash outflow is 10%. Similarly, you calculate for the other 3 time buckets. It is 16.66%, 20%, and 25%. Now, Reserve Bank of India has told that gap as a percentage to total cash outflow for day 1, it should not exceed 5%. For 2 to 7, it should not exceed 10%. For the 3rd time bucket, it should not exceed 15%. And 4th time bucket, it should not exceed 20%. So this is the Reserve Bank of India guideline. That is the gap as a percentage to total cash outflow. If the gap is positive, then there is no problem. Only when the gap is negative, Reserve Bank of India guidelines are to be strictly adhered to. So it should not exceed 5, 10, 15 and 20%. Now this is the structural liquidity statement for the remaining time buckets. Now as you see, the mismatches can be positive or negative. What is the positive mismatch? When maturing assets are more than maturing liabilities. MA means maturing assets and ML means maturing liabilities. If the maturing assets are more than maturing liabilities, then it is a positive mismatch. Negative mismatch means maturing liabilities are more than maturing assets. In that case, a negative mismatch arises. Now, from the risk management point of view, you have to consider the negative mismatch, how it should be managed. Otherwise, liquidity problem will come. Therefore, the negative mismatch can be managed by getting finance from market borrowings, call money market or term market or repos. If the maturing assets minus maturing, MA means maturing assets and ML means maturing liabilities. So, outflows are more than inflows. Here, managing the situation is based on the time availability. Short-term borrowings you can make, availing finances and discounting facilities from other banks, RBI, etc. Or you can sell securities, shares, etc. to manage the negative mismatch. If you are having a positive mismatch, the surplus funds can be deployed in government bonds or securities or shares of good companies or any other legal investments. You can make investments and you can earn some profit. So this is what we have already seen. Now you have to see how the assets and liabilities are to be classified into different time buckets. Now let us see the outflow. Outflow represents the liability side. You take the liability side of the balance sheet and for each head Reserve Bank of India has given guidelines how to classify the same. The first item is capital, reserves and surplus. It is to be classified over 5-year time bucket. Then demand deposits, current account and savings. Here, the savings bank, you have to split into two heads. One is volatile portion and another one is core portion. The volatile portion represents the fluctuations in the savings bank account balance on a day-to-day basis. Reserve Bank of India has given guideline that volatile portion is 10%. Remaining balance is core portion. For example, if a bank is having 100 crore savings bank deposit, 10%, 90 crores, it should be classified under volatile portion. And remaining 10 crores is to be classified under volatile portion and 90 crore is to be classified under core portion. Now this volatile portion is to be classified in day 1 time bucket. Core portion is to be classified under more than 1 year up to 3 years time bucket. 1 to 3 years time bucket it is to be classified. Similarly, for the current account, volatile portion is prescribed as 15% of the balance. Remaining 85% is to be classified under core portion. Again, the volatile portion, it is to be classified under day 1 time bucket. Core portion is to be classified under the time bucket 1 to 3 years. Term deposits, you know the maturity period, therefore they are to be classified under the respective maturity buckets. Similarly, certificate of deposits, it should be classified according to the period of deposit. Then you are having inter-branch adjustment credit balance. It should be classified under day 1 time bucket. Other liabilities, just like bills payable, the core component, the Reserve Bank of India has not given specific guidelines. The volatile portion and core portion are to be classified depending upon the experience of the individual bank concerned. The volatile portion is to be classified under day 1 and core portion is to be classified under 1 to 3 years time bucket. Now here you are having certain small exercise how to classify a savings bank account balance with 5,500 crore, current account 12,000 crore, etc. So basing on the guidelines already given, you can classify it and you can practice this problem. Similarly, if you take asset side, cash day 1 time bucket, balance with the Reserve Bank of India, the excess balance over and above the CRR and SLR is to be classified under day 1 time bucket. The balance amount under the SLR is to be classified into different time buckets based on the different maturity period of the deposits. Similarly, balances with the other bank. Other banks, they stipulate certain conditions. Minimum balance is to be maintained. That minimum balance maintenance, we consider it as non-withdrawable portion. This is to be classified under 1 to 3 years time bucket. The remaining balance, the balance above the minimum required balance, it should be classified under day 1 time bucket. Money at call and short notice, they are to be classified depending upon the residual maturity period of the particular deposits. Similarly, under the advances, bills purchased and discounted, respective maturity buckets. In the case of cash credit and overdraft, again you have to classify under core portion and volatile portion. Here also Reserve Bank of India has not given specific guidelines, but basing on the experience of a particular bank, they have to be classified under volatile portion and core portion. Volatile portion is to be put under day 1 time bucket and core portion is to be classified under 1 to 3 years time bucket. Term loans, they are having maturity period and accordingly they are to be classified. Bills purchased and discounted, you know the maturity period of the bills purchased and discounted, accordingly they are to be classified. In the case of non-performing assets, you have to classify after taking into account the provisions made, interest suspense, and claims received from ECGC or DICGC. So, the net of provisions, interest suspense, and claims received from ECGC and DICGC, they are to be classified under different heads: substandard over 3 to 5 years time bucket, doubtful and loss over 5 years time bucket, fixed assets and other assets, they are to be classified over 5 years time bucket. Now here also a small exercise is given. You can go through it and practice this problem so that you can very well acquainted with the classification of assets and liabilities. This is also another problem. Here the solution for the problems are given. Then we are having interest rate risk. What is meant by interest rate risk? When banks' assets and liabilities are exposed to fluctuations in the market interest rate, this has a potential impact on net interest income and the market value of the equity of the financial institution. Here, as in the case of liquidity risk, here the assets and liabilities are to be classified into different time buckets as rate sensitive assets and rate sensitive liabilities, and gap is to be found out. And the method by which the interest rate risk can be managed, we call it as traditional gap method, TGM. There is another method also available, duration gap analysis method. Now the details of these methods are uploaded in another video under the head SWAYAM Risk Management channel. You can go through it for full details of the management of interest rate risk. Now here, as in the case of liquidity risk, you have to find out the difference between rate sensitive asset and rate sensitive liability. If the rate sensitive assets are more than rate sensitive liability, it is a positive gap. If rate sensitive liability is more than rate sensitive asset, it is a negative gap. Then if rate sensitive liability is equal to rate sensitive asset, it is a zero gap. Now what is the impact of this gap on net interest income? If the gap is positive, interest rate increasing scenario, then your net interest income will increase. In the case gap is positive and the interest rate decreasing scenario, then net interest income will decrease. Similarly, if the gap is negative, interest rate increasing scenario, net interest income decreases. And similarly, when the gap is negative, interest rate decreasing scenario, net interest income will increase. So these points you have to remember so that you can do these problems easily. So thank you very much for listening to this deliberations on asset liability management. Thank you all.